Greetings and welcome to the screencast for MU4606 on Tuesday, March 24th, 2020. There are two readings for today's class. One is Students with Disabilities in the Core Art Standards. That one is linked in our course readings folder in the Google Drive. And the other one, which if you didn't know about the second article, it's okay. I'm going to cover it and then you can read through it. It's a link to an NAFME site, and it's on behavioral supports for students with special needs. So again, I'll address that, I'll cover it, and make sure that you know where to access it. Actually, you can find it in our Canvas page, the page for online learning. So let's get started. There will be four primary considerations for this brief talk, which would include policies, processes, instructional approaches, and behavioral supports. One of the primary policy pieces that comes from federal legislation is the IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It has roots as far back as 1975, and even before there was certain legislation and policy that led to the original 1975 piece, which was released under a different name. But since it's been known as IDEA, and two key pieces of knowledge I want you to have are that under one of the reauthorizations in 2001, individuals with disabilities must participate in school, district, and state assessments, which of course this has a big implication for schools, and especially if they're being measured or evaluated based on students' assessment performance. But another one is a consideration for all teachers that we make appropriate accommodation for all students. It is our dutiful obligation to teach all students and when necessary to make appropriate accommodations. So another piece that is kind of policy related but also practice related, and that you will learn much about this when you get into the teaching profession, was IEP. And you've probably heard of this, but individualized education plans are in existence. Often these are filed for students with disabilities. They can be filed for a number of different kinds of needs, but they tend to be used for students with disabilities. A couple of the key teacher responsibilities include possessing knowledge not only of our subject matter, but having knowledge about working with students with disabilities. And that is a responsibility, it's an obligation, it's one of the reasons that you're taking this particular class. And so we need to know as much about the students' disabilities and about the students themselves. Another responsibility includes the challenge or that we challenge students to excel. And I'll elaborate on this a little bit, but basically that we maintain the instructional and content integrity. More on that soon. Okay, so who are some of the students with disabilities? There are a number of specific categories that are linked within the reading, but the authors make the point that the categories alone aren't enough for us to determine specific accommodations. So you can look on page 4 and see, in fact, let me see, I can kind of blaze over to that. And they offer percentages of these disabilities that may appear in the classroom. But there are a couple of reasons that the categories alone don't tell us everything that we need to know. One would be that each individual exists within a range of ability levels, and that can be substantially variable. Another thing is that many of the disabilities kind of cross over and overlap. So students may have multiple existing conditions. So we can't look at each particular category in isolation. It's a more complex picture. There are guidelines on Table 2 on page 8. I think these are a particular value, and I'm just going to read through them. But I want you to know these. These are guidelines for using the core art standards, but specifically for students with disabilities. And this is a nice list here. 1, maintain high expectations. 2, promoting communicative competence. 3, using principles of UDL, or Universal Design for Learning. More on that in a moment. 4, know how to select and use appropriate accommodations for student or individual students, and then you can read numbers 5 and 6 right there as well. One final thought for this slide right here is one that the authors suggest, that we design instruction and materials so that all students can fully interact with the content. And again, we're going to continue to revisit this theme. So 3 principles for universal design include representing information in multiple formats and media. We tend to be pretty good at this in music, but we want to capture students' imaginations through different kind of visual media, oral media, etc. Oral meaning AURAL. We want to provide multiple pathways for students' actions and expressions. Again, music tends to be really, I think, appropriate for meeting this particular principle. We have so many different ways to engage students and to get them actively involved, and that includes students of all ability levels. And 3, provide multiple ways to engage students' interests and motivation. The authors referred to this as kind of ways of recruiting students into the classroom environment, and so kind of meeting them where they are. And if we're able to do that, often we'll be able to get increased involvement from our students. Okay, on accommodation, students do not suggest, or I'm sorry, the authors suggest that teachers do not alter instructional strategies. Or I'm sorry, the teachers do alter instructional strategies, but not content. And this is one of the themes that we've kind of alluded to a couple times here. And one of the main reasons is about academic integrity. And it is that we basically have no need to dumb down musical content for our students. They'll still have interests that are, as integral to the art as any of us. So it's about what kind of strategies can we use to provide them those meaningful opportunities. And speaking of strategies, one of the links from the article was this nifty 6 scaffolding strategies, and I wanted to call your attention to this one. And I hope that you will visit this page. I'm just going to kind of scroll through it real quickly and read off the 6. But please do spend a little bit of time with this. I see the ZPD, or the Zone of Proximal Development. That's a good educational theory for you to know a little bit about. But those scaffolding strategies include show and tell, tap into prior knowledge, give time to talk, pre-teach vocabulary, use visual aids, pause, ask questions, pause, and review. So please do take a little time and read through this. It's very valuable, I think, for all of us in the education profession. Okay, and real quickly on the NAFME online article on behavioral supports, just 3 kind of pieces, and then I'll actually go to the article and give you a snapshot of it. There are many factors that influence behavior, and you're going to want to read through the list. In fact, you know what? Let's go there right now. Article looks like this. Again, it is linked in our 4606 online page, written by Mr. Brian here. And so you can see this list of what determines behavior, things that include anxiety, coping behaviors, the need to escape of activity or work, difficulty with home life, etc. I'm actually going to quiz you on some of these items in a little creative way a little bit later. It has some first step resources, a lot of the people that we want to connect with in order to best help our students. Then some basic strategies that include some of the visual aids. You can see like the musical schedule. This would include things like procedures in class. There's a piece on data collection and kind of formally gathering information to help us analyze what might be some of the cause of particular behaviors, and then some more kind of qualitative ways of gathering information as well. So do take some time and read through this, and another good and useful article. I'm just going to close up with a few thoughts about that piece. I mentioned visual supports that would include classroom procedures and activities, and another documenting formal observations for behavioral analysis. All right, so that was a real quick kind of blow through of the literature for today. You have two tasks. One, some of you have already participated in the classroom discussion page. Good for you. You have time to do that between Tuesday and Wednesday, the 24th and 25th. There are 2 posts that are required. And then the other is that I've given you a 10-item crossword puzzle in Canvas, and it's linked also from our online page, but I'm going to take you there right now. Let's see. This is the crossword puzzle. There's an attachment. It is a 10-item crossword having to do with the material that I shared with you. You will see that it is a PDF file. And so there are 2 different ways that you can submit your answers. One would be, if you have access to a printer, go ahead and print it, write in your answers, then you can take a photo and upload it in Canvas. If you don't have a printer, that's no problem. Just go into the Canvas upload and then give the answers for numbers 2, 5, 7, and 10 across, and numbers 1, 3, 4, 6, 8, and 9 down. You just print those into the field. I hope you somewhat enjoy the crossword. I thought it might be a fun way to summarize some of the key concepts and terms that came about from the readings for today. So I'm going to end this screencast. Please make sure that you continue to monitor our online page. You can make use of the Q&A form that we have linked from that site. And I will be in touch with you before our class session for Thursday, March 26th. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.